you're spending $1,000 on a round trip flight every time, at least.
Yeah.
And if 6 to 20 individuals go on that trip, like, you might have cheap lodging, but it still costs you $1,000 to go. Why wouldn't you give them $20,000 worth of United States dollars to whatever they need, and just say, hey, look, this is your community. You do what we trust you. We've listened to you on what you need.
Yeah.
So we'll let you do it.
And here's the dollars to make it happen.
Right.
Yeah.
But instead, that white savior says, I'll hold on to my dollars.
Yep.
I will go in and I'll decide what your community needs, because clearly we at the United States have got it going on.
Hey guys, it's Chelsea.
And it's Brandon.
And you're listening to the Religious Dropouts
Podcast.
Yeah, thanks for being here, guys. I am officially mind blown that somehow in our discombobulated, chaotic thoughts and passions, we have somehow made it to episode 17. Brandon almost said 18.
Well, it is 18.
No, it's 17.
Y'all, you guys know that I'm right because you're also watching it.
Now we have to restart. It is 18.
No, just because Chelsea's wrong doesn't mean we were starting. Alicia, don't cut any of this.
Yes, you better cut it all. Anyway, in our chaotic world of thought, I cannot believe we've made it to episode 18.
19.
It feels nuts. I hate you. It feels nuts to be here. But we love you guys. We're so excited you're here. So Brandon came up with today's question to open up the pod. And what is it?
Not an original question, but a little icebreaker.
Good to know.
What are you learning these days? And or what are you loving?
Well, why don't you answer first, because it was your question, so I know you've got something in the chamber.
I have been learning a introductory level amount about AI, and I've been using ChatGPT, which I might be like late to the game on, but I have a feeling for you and our audience
listen to it or know what it is. I know I've talked to people that I know that know.
So it's been kind of fun for work and even podcast stuff. I've been able to kind of throw my thoughts at it and see what I can do. Like for work, I'm planning a trip for some of our leadership to go to Silicon Valley, and
that's awesome.
I punched in like, what are the non-touristy things to do in the area, and it gave me like here's a 1-day itinerary for and it built it out. It was wild.
I have done literally nothing with any of that.
Yeah.
And I think TikTok knows that it's time to do something with it, because every single ad on my TikTok is for AI. It's all the different types of
anything
whatever.
That's like project management or whatnot, you're going to be able to get done so much faster.
Yeah. I'm just not
if
ready.
You just download the app and start playing with it.
I know,
I know.
Yeah, you know how I am.
Well, this one's going to hit the world hard.
In 5 years, but in 5 years, I'll be on the podcast saying, "Oh, I love this new AI stuff," and you'll be like, "Yeah, that was 5 years ago."
Just imagine Google as a search engine, but if they're developing something of it, but if they don't, this thing does what Google does, but it actually is somebody that thinks.
I know.
So it's gonna
I know.
It's gonna solve it for you.
I had a really good friend that went on this and I don't know if she used to listen to the podcast. I don't know if she still does, but she'd be like, "I'm so scared." She's like, "I'm actually a little scared because it's unbelievably intelligent." Like the stuff she was asking it, and she's telling me this, and I'm just like, "Okay, boo, yeah, you be scared." I don't even know. I haven't even asked it one question.
With things like that. I mean,
well, and I think she was more.
I know that I have some people in my life that
conspiracy theorist.
Yes, that when I got an Amazon Alexa, they're like, "Oh, I'm
better turn off the camera."
I'm not going to be listened to, so I'm not going to get one.
I don't mean to laugh because probably some of our listeners feel that way, but I've had people say that to me about my Echo because it's a camera.
That's what I said. What did I say? Amazon
Alexa. But it's saying it's just a version of it.
It's the Echo.
But they would slide the little things so you can see it. They'd slide the camera off. I'm like,
what's wild to me? I get it. If you want to physically block the camera, but my thing is, if they wanted to listen to you, you have a phone in your pocket, don't you?
Exactly. I'm you think they're not going to figure that out? You think they're using Alexa now to do it? They've been doing
Yeah.
it. You know what I mean? Come on. Anyway, yeah. So, and then what are you loving? That was learning, right? Oh, you said and or.
Yeah, I have a show that is a little vulgar, so if you're not into it, but honestly,
Wait, this is the podcast, not church, so you're good. It's good.
I know that's
Anyway,
true.
keep.
Oh, deconstructing.
We're so used to having to give like weird disclaimers about what we read or watch. Like, make sure you don't look this up because it might have a cuss word in it. Like, it might have a sex scene in it. Don't look at it. Anyway.
I only know one person that likes this show and loves it and sees it and appreciates it like me. And that's because I put her onto it. So Shelby, you'll get this. But
yeah,
Money Heist on Netflix, I'm rewatching it. And it's a bank robbing series.
Interesting, yeah.
But I think plot wise, it's genius. And it's one of those foreign films that goes that they do like the overdubbed voices. So if you watch Squid Games or you watch Lupin, and I feel like there's another one I know of that was very popular, but Squid Games is obviously the biggest one.
I haven't seen any of those, by the way, so I'm just checking.
Netflix, I think whatever Netflix does, like these kill. And this series is actually like really viral. Like
that's cool.
But nobody in my circle. Let us know
if you're listening.
Nobody in my circle watches it, but I think it's amazing.
Yeah, post on if you're watching YouTube. Post in the comments if you watch it.
You guys better watch it off my recommendation, and it is amazing. And if you love it like I do, you'll know.
Yeah,
you'll know. You'll tell me because you'll be the only one in your family. So
that'll be interesting. I'd like to see because we do usually have some good comments. So we didn't
sometimes.
So we'll see what comes of that.
Yeah, why don't you guys chat with us like you should?
Right. Yeah, we'd love to know. Just tell us the things. So
what about you?
I think what are you loving? I am loving reading. I know that sounds really weird at first, but I loved reading as a kid. I loved reading when I was growing up, but then as a young adult, I had to read so much for work. And I was always reading books like your White Fragility, 10 Habits of Highly Successful People,
right?
Spiritual Disciplines, just stuff like that.
Nonfiction.
Right. All the time. And, with which also, if you are into that, You Are a Badass by Jen Sincero is one of my favorite books ever. Anyway, so I would read so much of that like it was so long that I read for fun. And so just in the last, 4 weeks or so, I've read 6 books. And I've been reading like crazy for a few months. And I'm just loving it. And so a couple things I've loved is, I just finished the Writer's Retreat. Pretty good. A little mystery, a little murder, little weird. And then I also finished a couple LGBTQ books that were written by queer authors. They featured queer love and some different storylines and stuff. Those were really great. So you can message me if you'd like some titles of those, but that's what I'm loving. And then right now I'm reading Fourth Wing. So it's super, I've had 1 million messages about it. So I'm very excited. One of my former students, Sarah, also said she loved it. She just messaged me the other day about it. So I'm excited. And
learning anything? Learning? Is there something
that's what I was just thinking. I think
new that you've learned or something.
I know. I think that I feel like with my job at Oaks, I'm always learning because I have had to write a lot of grants and stretch in ways that I've never things I've never been trained on, things I've never done. So I feel like with my career in nonprofit and philanthropy, I'm in a season of learning.
Yeah.
Where I really want to do more at my job and I want to step up more and do more things. And so I've been really trying to expand my knowledge of some of that stuff. And so yeah, and learning a new job. I just started a new job actually. So I've been there about 3 weeks now and I love it. So, well, when this comes out,
they're treating you well.
They are amazing. Yeah. I came from a little bit of a rough environment. Had a little rough ending at my last job with the gym, and I am at St. James Club in Holland, Ohio, Sylvania area, and it's been amazing.
What's worse, getting leaving?
I already know what you're
leaving the gym or leaving church leadership.
Dude, it's so funny because I've never had a secular job that I've had that kind of that I've ever been treated that bad. No offense, but I've never had that experience other than in the church. Like that was the first time really secularly that I'd ever really experienced.
Right.
So that it was definitely hard for me. But yeah, I appreciate Brandon was kind of in the trenches with me experiencing that because he was with me in all those, at that ending.
A couple of calls.
God, man. So it's been great. The start has been amazing to this new job. And the people are just incredible. My boss is amazing. And the clients are just second to none. So it's been good.
So we are going to move into our keyboard warrior segment.
Ooh.
Keyboard warriors for Christ.
So for this week's keyboard warriors, I wanted to do something a little bit different. It is the same vein, I think, of keyboard warriors, but I saw this pastor that I follow that I think I've referenced on the podcast before, but her name's Reverend Jackie Lewis.
Amazing, yeah.
And she kind of addresses some of her keyboard warriors. And I thought it was interesting. Some of the comments they made, they like submitted in a form to her leadership or her church.
Mm-hmm.
And she posted a thread of these comments. And I won't read all of them. Some of them
like a comment card type of thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like message us here on your church's page when you scroll to the bottom. So they commented on something like that.
Yeah.
Which is at least they're signing it. Do you know what I mean? Like first name, last name, email.
Now
which
she didn't share. I was just gonna say she didn't share those. I wish we could see those, but anyway.
So I'll read a couple of them and then I'll read her response. And I think we'll just go into a discussion off of that.
Yeah.
So the first one says, "Fuck around with our kids and find out." And what you should know about that is this Reverend Lewis is affirming, and I think when you're an affirming Black woman in New York, this is just kind of like
or anywhere
you get the hate instantly.
Yeah.
This one says, trigger warning: "Hey, ignorant ass Black woman, keep your filthy paws off of our children. They don't belong to low IQ nitwits like yourself or to the idiots that work for the government," which is a weird little shoehorned in government thing.
Yeah, I love that pastor. You threw in government to this reverend. But
someone said, "You are an abomination to God, you fake minister."
That one's my favorite, I think.
Yeah. "I'm convinced they are inciting a civil war 100% international or intentionally. This is all by design. Come and take it, America, and I will proudly raise my girls homeschooled and fearing God."
Oh my God. Wow.
First of all, the Rev at the beginning of her name is a tragedy if she believes this.
Oh.
So.
Yeah, those warriors be worrying. My word.
So she says.
This is her caption.
Something that I think is the essence of why we do Keyboard Warrior.
Yeah.
But it says it should be okay to have a debate, to listen deeply, and to come to an understanding, or a viewpoint, or to disagree. That's how it is to be human and learning on this planet. But this shit, these assassinations of my character and the questioning of my faith and quality is how some of us have devolved. They could just not read my social posts and move on, but that's too kind. So here is my fiercely loving response. I'm deleting, blocking, and yes, canceling any hate speech on my pages. You'll not use my platform to defame me, my community at Middle Church, or my work. Hell to the no. Have a nice life being vicious and petty.
Amen.
In that last part,
get them,
we
sis.
echo.
Yeah. And to all of our keyboard warriors, have a nice life being vicious and petty. Yeah, motherfuckers. No, just kidding. But yeah, I love that too, Brandon. I love that we talked a little bit about this before the episode. We didn't talk about it a ton, but we read over. Brandon said that he really wanted to do this instead of our own keyboard warriors, kind of share her.
So if you hate it, just
story.
Let Chelsea do it from now on.
No, but her story. And I told him I thought that was so good because it's a reminder of like, we've had people that have told us, I think, in this journey that we're kind of petty for highlighting keyboard warriors, or that maybe we should cut it, and I think that post from her was just a reminder of why we do it. Like, it's almost like because we need you as well as us. we've got to find ways to find humor in the hate, and
Yep.
also to make sure that they know that it's in one ear and out the other, and it really is a joke to us. Like like have a good life being petty and hateful, you keyboard warrior. Like, and
Yep.
here's the funny comedy of the day, you know? And I think the more quiet we let them be with this like hate speech and like ridiculous stuff, I just think the more they feel free to do it. And we've gotten 10 times less hate since this segment
10
than
times.
we ever did in the
Yep.
beginning. So it says something. It's doing something.
Well, and it takes the power back because
Yeah.
they think that their comment drop is like this mic drop of a moment, but the
That's
fact
right.
that we get to highlight it on a platform that they'll never be able to enter,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
we get to laugh
Yep.
and move on.
Yep.
Like, we're good if you leave us the comment or if you don't.
Yeah.
So go ahead and leave it. It produces content for
That's
us.
right.
We're totally good.
And I just can't. We are scratching for content for this. Like, I think this segment is almost gonna run its course soon. I think we'll be bringing
Oh,
something new in. Maybe. I mean, I don't know. I think that we're
in
gonna
the
be.
arms of
Yeah.
the
Yeah. Seriously. Show. Oh, I was gonna say show the
fly
dogs.
away.
I was gonna say show the video of the dogs, but like I will just drop dead right now. I can't handle it. It's too devastating that they play with that song.
We will have to have, if we don't have a comment for the rest of 2023,
Yeah.
we're gonna have to hold
It's over.
a religious dropouts funeral for the
We
keyboard
will.
warriors.
We will. We will.
Here lies the keyboard warrior
Here
segment.
lies our first segment. Oh, but you guys, that's great because we're expanding. We're doing new things, you know. And
Totally.
someone's always going to be big mad, so don't worry. That segment won't be going anywhere.
That's true.
Anyways, all right. So switching gears today. Brandon and I kind of talked about, you know, as we go through episodes and different concepts, and a lot of the times the way that we build out these episodes is just things that we've heard from you, and things that like you guys have asked us to talk about. And so one of the things that we've kind of gotten and things that we have feelings about is mission trips.
Yeah, mission trip, definitely. So we kind of crafted some questions that will help guide our conversation.
Yeah.
The first one, do you feel like churches prioritize international ministries or international trips over local involvement?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, and it's kind of a no-brainer question. Yes, they do. But what we want to create a conversation around is like, well, why?
yeah.
Well, how did it get that way? What's the deal there? Why is
Yeah.
there such a disconnect?
Well, you know what I was just thinking? I just thought about how ironic. And again, I don't know. I love your thoughts, but I don't know how to, right? Like, we're kind of working through the answer of this question, right? This concept of what you just asked. But I think along those lines, I feel like, isn't it so weird that so many Christians that I know on my Facebook and in my life are very big on international missions.
Mm-hmm.
They either take regular international missions trips, they fund regular international mission trips, or they post and share all about World Vision or other sorts of
Yeah, they've got four kids on their fridge.
Yes.
Yep.
And so that is so interesting to me because, you know what? A lot of those people, a lot of that group of people were also the same people that were livid about money being sent to Ukraine for relief for the war just in this last
Right.
year. So it's just kind of interesting to me because I'm like, wait, you're okay with using your tithes and offerings and using church resources and to go to all these places
Yeah.
but then when America sends money, it felt like didn't you feel like that was a really big uproar? Like there was a lot of people. So it's just interesting, but why aren't we uproaring about mission trips then?
Well, I think it's if the government spends their money that way, that's very socialist.
But the church is good? Yeah, okay. That's fair. Yeah, that's a good perspective.
But if the church does it,
it's godly.
It's godly.
Yeah.
And it's under their own control.
Yeah.
So if the church was actually giving the way that we probably should, they probably would hate it too.
Yeah.
But
you're right. That's fair. Yeah.
But it also could be if we had a different leadership when we decided to send money to Ukraine.
Oh, right.
It probably would be a
different situation.
A bragging point.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true. Yep. I also think, you know, I don't know. Have you ever been on a mission trip outside of United States?
I haven't.
Have you ever been on a mission trip in the United States?
Nope.
So I only asked that question because I wondered like what your exposure was to mission
No,
trips
I
and
should have. I'm very familiar with the planning.
yeah,
I've worked alongside ministers that's their role at the
yeah,
church.
yeah.
I've supported pastors that travel internationally.
Mhm.
Um, Definitely some of the local programs,
Yeah,
the different ways people raise funds for
yeah.
international issues, whether that's like the boxes at Christmas time or the
Mhm.
30-hour famines. So I'm like aware. I think I just, before I got to any like youth ministry position, I was a youth pastor with limited hours for the
Yeah.
first 4 years of my ministry, so I wouldn't have been able to pull off like a missions trip.
Mhm.
Um, but then once I became a youth pastor that could have
Mhm.
at a church that paid me, like for my time, we went into COVID. So like,
Yeah. Yeah. So I went I've been on a few mission trips in my career as a youth pastor. Never
right.
as a teenager, never. So that perspective I can't speak on. I know it's life changing. I know a lot of teenagers. I think of my friend Addie. I love her. She's a student that I've worked with and that I love. And I've seen some of the things she's written on her Instagram and
Yep.
stuff about mission trips she's taken. So I know that it's impactful. But what I will say is, you know, I I think it's so there's something to be said when there is so much mission work in your own community and in your in your in the area where your church is actually at.
Yep.
And for some reason it feels like because we might not have superiority there, like, well, I might not my church might not be have any kind of say in my town, but I can go over to Guatemala and I can be this savior and I can, like, and I think because I think there's a lot of churches that they can't be that in their own communities, like they don't feel like, and they're not willing to look to find things around them that like they could pour all of their energy into.
Hmm.
It's easier to connect over to make it feel like you're really doing something when you're going
Yeah.
international.
Well, and I think too, there is so much of building your own castle in ministry and not building the kingdom. So you spend money on things that benefit you, and you create these little towns of community where it doesn't always, you don't give money in, and you're not necessarily okay if it doesn't ever come back.
Yeah,
That's not normally what churches do.
yeah,
They invest in things that are their own.
yeah,
So that's why instead of going to the local Halloween fair, you create your own trunk or treat. Like,
yeah.
when your church could be a part of
Something
several
huge, something great.
festivals,
Yeah.
several things in the community, and just work and be there, be a part of it. How can you make it
Huh.
better?
But you got to have your name on the flyers.
But you have to have your name, and you have to own the whole
I
damn
hate it.
thing.
I hate it. Yeah, that's such a good point. I found this article
Yeah.
that I wanted to share, and it's just like a few sentences, but it was like a study and then an article that was done by the University of South Carolina. And it says, it's basically saying that like not all evangelicals see the value in mission trips, actually, like internationally.
Right.
American short-term mission teams tend to dump unwanted goods on host communities, are culturally insensitive, and commonly assume that the locals need American expertise. Construction projects push out local workers and opportunity. And um and then it references this, I thought was also important. Books like When Helping Hurts by Brian Fickert and Steve Corbett aim to explain how leaders can make mission trips more effective. And then they give this last part too, which I thought was huge. And a warning against a white savior attitude.
Yeah.
They suggest that the purpose of short-term missions is to walk with the poor and build lasting relationships that will lead people to Christ within your own communities.
Hmm.
And I thought there was three things about that really got me. One is the danger of what we actually do to communities when we go international. Number two is the white savior complex. And number three is even a book recommendation or kind of reading if we're a church leader or a youth pastor or whatever. or someone that organizes trips like this to figure out where you could do better. So
Yeah.
I just thought that was a great little, that was obviously just a piece of a big article, but I was like, wow, that's a great perspective. And it's very true.
Yeah, and I know some churches that are working on it. Like they want, like there are some churches with like long-standing, reoccurring like trips and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But when you think of that perspective of like, there's local work that could work on that building, but you have to be the one.
Exactly. Yep.
There is local expertise that could share and run a program
Yep.
for kids, or even preach and guest speak and all
Yep.
of that. But like,
Yep.
you have to be the one. And my thing is, it's so expensive to get you there.
Yep.
Why wouldn't you just give it?
Yeah.
These groups will spend for, I mean, I'm just guessing, international money. You're spending a $1,000 on a round trip flight, hands down, every time, at least.
Yeah.
And if 6 to 20 individuals go on that trip, like,
Yeah.
you might have cheap lodging, but it still costs you $1,000 to go. Why wouldn't you give them 20,000 worth
Oh,
of
God,
United
yeah.
States dollars to whatever they need? Like,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
just say, hey, look, this is your community. You do what you we trust you. We've listened to you on what you need.
Yeah.
So we'll let you do it.
And here's the dollars to make it happen.
Right.
Yeah.
But
And-
instead, that white savior says,
Yeah.
I'll hold on to my dollars.
Yep.
I will go in and I'll decide what your community needs, because clearly,
Yeah.
we at the United States
Yeah.
have got it going on.
And I think what's hard about that is I can very easily identify what going to another country and doing work and being with the people and sitting with them, I understand the value in that because I experienced it.
I get that.
The hard part of that tension is, was it worth I could experience all the same feelings I got in Guatemala, which was an amazing experience, right? I think Addie might have been, she went to Panama. I think I've seen other people that just took a trip to Africa, a big group of from my last church. So all of these people, including myself, we all bring something back, right? Passion, a deeper understanding. Like, I'm not saying it's for nothing. I am saying, though, let's say it did cost me, I think, $1,800 or something to go.
Yeah.
That is the cost there that the pastor of the church in the mountains needed to spend to get a vehicle to get into the city to get hospital care for his church members in the village. Was my cost to be over there for an experience.
Times it by 15.
So I'm sorry to say, as much as it meant to me, I think that we've got to rework some of these conversations,
Right.
and we've got to rework some of these systems, because it was life-changing in some ways. I do not regret it. But when I think about where that money could have been for me to spend a week getting an incredible experience, I just don't know that it was worth taking that money
Right.
away from them when they desperately could have used it in a much bigger life-saving, life-changing way. But I got to go and have a great week,
Right.
like helping people. You know what I mean?
And I don't mean to
I don't
tease
know.
you, like,
No, yeah.
but it is like we have to start evaluating our warm fuzzies.
Absolutely.
And say, like, could we have gotten that if we impacted
Absolutely.
our local community?
Absolutely.
Could we have gotten that by reading books that show systemic
That's right.
injustices in areas?
That's right.
Honestly, even understanding racism at a better level, like in
Yeah.
white privilege,
Yeah.
white savior complexes. Like, if you understand that kind of stuff,
Mhm.
then maybe you don't need to have the warm fuzzies of
Yeah.
kicking around and playing a soccer ball with
Yeah.
Black children in Africa.
Yeah.
Maybe you should just hang out at your local shelter.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll tell you, if you want to, if you loved what it felt like, you know, I mean, it broke your heart and it was devastating and hard, but you got that passion from playing with a kid that didn't have shoes on. I got 17. It's about 35 minutes from here. I'm in Sylvania. That's in Monroe, Michigan. And you just call me and we'll set up a mission trip for
Chelsea,
you. And
is
you can
the
stay there for a
issue-
whole week.
Is the issue that
And bring shoes. You can bring some shoes. I'll tell you their shoe size.
Monroe is the only like county in Michigan or in the United States with homeless, or Or are there
It
other
sure seems like it.
counties that could do this
You
with their
know,
church?
I will say I just saw this, and I think it was my friend Troy, which I love him, little Troy, but he was a youth pastor. He does like a media ministry now,
Okay.
but he did ministry.
Oh, that's us.
Yeah.
Media.
Yeah, oh yeah. And yeah, amen. But he worked with, I think it was called Youth Works. You remember that organization? And they did like a mission trip in like Kentucky. Like they went
Yeah.
somewhere that needed work. That they had these areas where
They
the areas.
drove.
Yes, they
Yep.
saved a ton of money, and the areas submitted their need to this organization. So it wasn't like they were just like picking a community in
Yeah.
impoverished, and they were like, "Yo, can we come and paint and do?" No, like they helped
Yeah.
connect you to a within your rough area.
And I know this conversation is almost old in the church leadership
Oh,
aspect, because
yeah,
I know a lot of people that are peers that they've been able to have this conversation
Yeah.
within the church. But I
Yeah.
think as people deconstruct, this thing is always, missions is always laughable to
Yeah.
some people
It
that
is,
are
it
outside the
is.
church.
It is,
So
absolutely.
like kind of that's the reason why we want to bring it up.
Yeah, I totally agree. Well, and I think it's just one of those things where like just because it's been a conversation that's been happening for 8,000 years, nothing's changing. Like Troy's one of the only people that I know that in my group of people. And I can hear them now. Well, you have no idea what we've experienced. No, I do know what you experienced. I experienced it. I
Right.
get it.
And
But
it
I
was
also
beautiful
experience
and
it at
hard.
my
Yeah.
freaking shelter every day.
I know.
And it is heartbreaking and it is hard, but we need your ass. Like
Yeah.
we need you there. These kids need you. And you can have these you could see this kid graduate. You could do ministry with these families and these kids. A kid that I met when she was 5, I think she was 5 or 6 years old. I just got to see the other day, and she's like ending her high school career. Like she's somewhere in her junior year or something now. And I met her when she was in a very young elementary school at Oaks. I met her at the shelter. So it's just like you can do that. You can everything you want to do overseas. You can do here. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't do that. I'm just saying maybe it's time to reevaluate where our money and time is going.
Chelsea, I'm gonna let you finish because I gotta go to the men's retreat. So I'll just pray for all the people that you've got to affect. And
Yep.
But yeah, snowmobile men's retreat coming up.
God, I can't, dude. I can't. It's just hard. It's really, and I think I told Brandon before this episode too, actually. I said, sometimes we don't give credit where credit is due because we're just still so pissed, right? Like it's so annoying to watch churches have men's retreats and women's retreats and freaking mission trips overseas, but they've never done one thing for their backyard, right? That needs them, that needs help. And that really sucks. But I will say, I even mentioned there's a church in Flint that a couple of my friends have worked at, and one of my friends still does work at. And I know firsthand that church not only partners with a lot of their community, but they've paid off medical bills.
Yeah.
And they do these trips to Panama and to other countries and other places across the world. But they're also doing a ton of local ministry work.
Right.
So I just want to be careful and say, like, we do know churches that are doing it well. Unfortunately, we know 8,000 more that are still just doing nothing.
My question would be, and this is not something I envy because I'm not in church leadership like this, but like,
God.
How much is too much?
Yep, that's right.
How much is not enough?
Great question. Yep.
And that would be, that's subjective to the church that you're at, in the money you're messing with, your people, but
distance,
because I know that you guys still need events.
Mm-hmm.
I know that. I know you'll still need to pay for your building.
Yeah.
I know you still need to buy tech equipment.
Mm-hmm.
We're buying tech equipment.
Yeah.
Maybe buying more tech equipment.
I'm gonna punch Brandon if you guys one more tech thing before we get sweatshirts.
Okay.
Actually, by this episode, we are gonna have some sort of merch out, I think. So, or pretty soon.
Oh God, guys.
So you can DM us about that, about how excited you are. Anyways, but you get the tension. You get the tension.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't envy that, but somebody out there has to say, like, oh, I don't know if I want the number to be fixed. That would be a problem. It's back to that tithing thing.
Yeah.
But I do wonder, like, I just wonder why they're not. It feels like they're not doing enough in their local area.
That's right. Yeah.
And I just wish we asked better questions.
I look at it in my situation at my job at the shelter, and it's so interesting because we do have some amazing churches that partner with us, but it is shocking how much more money and help that we have gotten in the last 12 months from our same-sex atheist couples, our dispensaries down the street, and our and even our dispensaries in money and in sending teams.
Yeah.
It is so interesting, and companies.
They're sending teams?
Yeah. The whole 10 people down from with their little pot shirts and little
Wow,
come
that's
in and they get jobs.
hilarious.
Yeah, 2 different dispensaries have done that so far this year.
And by hilarious, I just mean cool. I do this
Right.
horrible thing.
Oh, well,
where
no, you guys. Yeah, you
I
get
always
it at
say,
this
isn't
point.
it funny? Isn't it hilarious?
Yeah,
and Jackie will be like,
no, actually.
you mean cool?
You mean
Like,
sad?
You're not laughing at me, right? And I'm like, oh, no. I mean, just, it's interesting.
No, but it is interesting. And it's interesting to me how many of those companies and out of church people give of time and energy to our homeless shelter and see the need, and they come down and they roll their sleeves up versus the amount of churches that step foot in our doors.
Wow.
And it's kind of sad. It's really sad. And it's made me even more angry. Like as someone who's left the church, I'm like, God, you guys really just piss me off.
Yeah.
Like, it really sets me off.
And I struggle too when the same people that have like for persons of color, kids of color on their fridge.
Oh yeah.
But then they
adopt a child programs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm cool with that. But here's where I get a little bit weird is but you won't acknowledge racism in the world.
That's
like,
right.
That's where it's weird. Or in our country, in your own
Did you send
heart.
me? Or maybe Jackie. Somebody just sent me. It might have been you. I can't remember, but it said, "Oh, it was you." You sent me that from what was that company? Remember? And it said conservatives on their way to vote against free lunch programs, and it was like, I don't remember what the thing was, but it was essentially that exact same concept. Like, here we are on our way to like vote against welfare programs and like helping kids, but then we'll have like 4 kids on our fridge, like from like another country.
Totally.
And it's like, nah, that's not how it works, man. That's not how it works. Explain it. Make it make sense.
And that makes me think like, I just wish they saw it. The world doesn't, your neighbors don't need your petty cash.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
They could also use your vote, and they could also use your
advocacy.
Yeah. And that's where the disconnect is really frustrating for me, is because churches will pay a whole person for missions. There'll be the missions pastor, the outreach pastor. But like, have you ever heard of a justice pastor?
Right.
Or like,
yeah.
I don't know.
Or the roles that you just mentioned, the like the outreach or the community. Those have you ever heard of those roles and actually doing work only not only, but mainly connecting and being a part of community events? Most of the time, wild. That's not what it is.
You as the lead pastor, because sometimes you're just a church and you are the person at your church. I get that if you're that small of a church. But if you're large enough to where you add staff to your church, I just think it would be amazing if you had dedicated staff that their job is to sit on chambers, sit on nonprofit boards.
But that should be the community. You would think.
Be.
Right, but that's too worldly.
Because why is your church's voice missing from those tables?
Always, yeah. Because it's too worldly. That's not for you. And it's funny because in the same breath,
it won't get better if you don't go there.
Right.
Which is me advocating from your perspective. I don't think the world always needs to change to the way these pastors want it to change. Yeah. But according to their logic, why wouldn't you go dive in?
Yeah. It's funny because in that same breath, I spoke good about that church investing in their community and an international. The church I just referenced, I didn't say a name, obviously, but I know that church denied a young adult who was very qualified, very incredible, and had been there, attending there and volunteering there for years and years. She asked to do a Be the Bridge study, and they said no, like 3 times. Oh. So it's like, I'm glad you guys are doing local work and you guys are doing international missions to all these crazy places, like, but really cool for not being willing. So it's funny because in the same breath that I can acknowledge goodness, you're still shitty. You know what I mean?
It's so weird.
And she's one of our listeners now. That's how I know.
And what's weird about Be the Bridge is, you guys, it's a great organization. It's all about race education.
Yep, that's right.
And their studies are all about bringing people of different ethnicities into the room, and then they study this content together, and they feel out that tension.
Mm-hmm.
It primarily women, go figure.
Yeah.
But what's funny about that is, I know the leadership, the person that's in leadership over that district, is a member of Be the Bridge.
I want to call him and just be like, yo,
I know.
do you know this church denied this study?
But imagine that church denying.
He's not shocked. Yeah, it's so funny. The irony.
Can't we just get a Francis Chan study up in here? John Piper.
What's the Beth Moore?
John McCarthy.
Actually, that was so weird. but that's what's so wait. But and then then this is gonna segue so far out of the realm. But
segue it.
It's so funny though, because you mentioned John MacArthur. I mentioned Beth Moore, which if you don't know that drama, just Google those two names. It's great, great content, but in the worst way. But I have to say, I feel the same way even about Beth Moore sometimes. Even her deacon, she's been on this kind of almost like a very similar, but different deconstruction journey herself. And as much as I love her, I'm so sick of I'll be at my church or my organization that is also a church too. We have a church as well. And we'll be talking and I'm like, yeah, we should do this Priscilla Schreier. And they do like Priscilla, right? She's a Black woman who leads Bible studies just like Beth Moore does, but Beth Moore's white. And they'll be like, well, we really love Beth Moore. And they're all white. I'm like, no, it's because you're all white and old. No, we're going to do a young person of color. That's a woman. We're going to change this game around, but it's just that's the same. It's the same thing. It's always the same voices, the same studies. It's
which is why we were able to spitball 4 of them in 2 seconds.
I know. We should have been struggling to come up with the hypocrisy of it all, or but we couldn't. Immediately we had people. Oh I don't know. Yeah, I think it's hard. I think this podcast sometimes can seem to people we're always tearing the church down. And I'd like to say that I totally disagree. I think there are a lot of times in this podcast, if you listen close enough, you will hear us acknowledge good in the church, or you will hear us acknowledge good in the pastors that we know in the church.
Yeah.
I know, just for example, this past month in the Religious Dropouts Facebook group, it's Dropouts and Delinquents is our private Facebook group. We've had 3 pastors in there, and they've been active. They've introduced themselves. They love the community. They're safe. They've identified even ties they have to anti-racism, to LGBTQ community. And it's just beautiful. So we can acknowledge the good of the church, but the church is doing, the church does that enough. The church praises themselves enough. So it's just kind of time to start diving into these places.
And I think if I could just be real about church people that might be oh, that's a gripe fest, or they don't hurt the church just because the church hurt you or whatever. What I would say is you are probably sitting under church history lesson, a denomination that left a denomination, that left a denomination, that left a denomination. And that's all because of church leaders that the churches are named after. See Lutherans, see Calvins,
Wesleyans. Yeah, right.
Your church denomination is named after dudes that nailed their issues with the church to the front door.
That's right.
So if you don't any of these critiques,
that's right. Yeah.
Then you should probably just
not be in church at all.
Not be in church at all. Because that's literally what, that's what makes change.
Yeah.
So if we make change, I don't think a denominations is going to come out and the Religious Dropouts
denomination.
Right.
But the community that's being created from from these conversations, I think is really beautiful. And and this is what happens.
Yeah.
Communities are created when you speak up. Communities are created when you stand up for some of this stuff. And sorry if that hurts the church that you're a part of, but maybe they kind of suck too.
So if you'd like to join the first church of the Macadams or whatever,
the church of the dropouts, the church of the dropouts and delinquents. That's what I want.
2nd Street Wackadians.
We're getting absolutely ridiculous, but I will just tell you this really
That's how you know the episode's over.
I will just tell you this really, really brief story is that Brandon and I used to dream about a church plant. And I don't even know if I've told this story on the podcast before, and we would go back and forth for days of what the church plant name was going to be. And so we would be like, best day ever, Church of the Nazarene. Like, not only white people, Church of the Nazarene. Like, we would just the most ridiculous shit back and forth forever. So we've been doing this a long time. So, so Church of the Dropouts and Delinquents feels super good to me.
Yeah,
it's the best one we've ever came up with.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I have a couple better names than the ones we just came up with, but maybe someday we'll look back at those notebooks and laugh with you guys.
When we have a real church. Love you guys.
For real. Bye.
Hey fam, thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Religious Dropouts Podcast. We hope it gave you a space to breathe, to laugh, and connect. It's our hope that as you journey along with us, that you too might find yourself saying, damn, it feels good to be a dropout. Be sure to check out our show notes for links to anything mentioned in this episode, including ways to connect with us on social media. We'd also love for you to like, subscribe, and share this podcast with anyone you know who might want to join our community. You are loved. Have a great week.